In the past day, we've learned that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been confirmed killed, along with former Iranian president and several senior Republican Guard Corps commanders in the strikes by US and Israel. Now, depending on which side of the political spectrum you're on, their deaths are obviously being met either with condemnation or celebration. But for the people in Iran, and let's be honest, they're the ones that are actually going to be suffering most from this. For over 3 decades, Khamenei and the IRGC have presided over one of the most brutal regimes that has systematically oppressed the population and killed political opponents. The Ayatollah's removal or death doesn't automatically spell regime collapse, because Iran's system is designed to function without one particular leader in place. They do have redundancy in place for key roles. But it is a strategic shock, the likes of which we haven't actually seen since the 1979 revolution. And here's why this really matters, is because the Islamic Republic depends on 2 main things to maintain control. The first is a tightly controlled security apparatus, namely the Republican Guard, and they are there to suppress dissent, to intimidate the population, keep everybody in line. And then a leadership narrative that keeps fractured elite factions aligned. So strikes that remove key leaders and degrade military cohesion make it harder for the regime to maintain both of these pillars. And that obviously opens the space for Iranians to reassess risk and to take action. Now, in many previous years, the people of Iran have repeatedly demonstrated mass frustration with protests over the years, 2009, 2019, 2022, and even as recent as December last year. And we've seen mass protests. Now, none of them have succeeded or gained a lot of traction because the regime was able to violently suppress them. Now, one thing that we do have to acknowledge is that regime change only sticks if it's owned and it's managed from within. And history shows this. In 1953, the US helped overthrow Iran's elected leader at the time, and the Shah's regime that replaced him lacked legitimacy. And this ultimately resulted in the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which actually brought about the current regime as we see it today. So for real and sustainable change to occur inside Iran, 2 main conditions need to be met. It must be driven by the Iranian people. So civilians, reformers, business leaders, and segments of the security forces who are ready for a different future. And number 2, it must be regionally accepted and not imposed. It's worth mentioning that in response to the US and Israeli strikes on Iran, Iran targeted sites in neighboring countries which actually had little strategic value. So we're talking about hotels, and civilian airports in neighboring countries. And all they did is it further alienated the Islamic regime from regional allies. And most of Iran's neighbors, so we're talking Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan, and even Israel, are not interested in a chaotic or an unstable Iran. They would benefit from a more pragmatic, less expansionist Iranian government that participates in regional trade, dialogue, diplomacy, instead of proxy wars, as is currently the case. And this doesn't mean that what's coming next is going to be easier or linear. Iran, as it is still a powerful state apparatus. The IRGC is still very much intact, although it's obviously degraded. And the political leaders may rally hardliners in an attempt to hold on to power. But the removal of Khamenei, regardless of your view, reduces the barrier for internal change and makes these decade-long frustrations a lot easier for people to express. And if this does happen, and if momentum comes from this, Iran and the Middle East could look very different in the next decade to come.